After travelling many, many a mile, our adventurers think they're getting close to their destination. All they know is that this is a monstrous tomb indeed. But first they come across this, a sphinx, an alive sphinx, that tells them if they choose, she can bless them with the gift of life. Or if they may, they can travel across the ridge past the deadly jackals to the statue. This one can grant the gift of death. But whichever blessing they choose will carry with them into the tomb itself. In this exposed area, the champion of Anubis sees our adventurers coming, and all the jackals militaristically turn to face them for a skirmish. As the skirmish ensues, one of our adventurers stumbles across something glinting in the mossy rocks. A gauntlet, although damaged, as if one of these jackals has sunken its teeth into it. The first thing that strikes you as you enter this monstrous tomb is a sound of yapping dogs. But then, to your left, you see a large ram's head with some kind of lever inside. The teeth, however, are razor sharp, but you carefully reach your hand in nonetheless. As you pull the lever, it releases the yapping dogs, the jackals. So there's two ways round opening the gate inside the ram's head. If you pick up the gauntlet and wear it, then essentially that stops the teeth coming down on your wrists, causing quite bad wounds. However, because it's already a bit damaged, you actually get stuck. You can get out of it as long as somebody helps you and as long as both of you pass a strength test. But with all these jackals coming through, obviously you're a bit distracted. The other method is without the gauntlet. Say you don't see it. But of course, that ensues wounds. And what it does, per turn, you take 1 wound, 2 wounds, 4 wounds, 8 wounds respectively. So you also need to be pulled out quite quickly. And then what happens when you pull the lever is this gate comes up and boom, the jackals stampede. After getting rid of the scurrying jackals and their champions of Anubis, you come across this room, an eerie room filled with 3 mummies, seemingly sleeping eternally. This is where the blessing, whichever one you chose, may start to come into effect. If you chose the blessing of death, then you're fine and you're able to move freely. However, if you chose the blessing of life, then you are essentially trespassing in the realm of the dead. And then another fight could potentially ensue. Out of these huge sarcophagi come these mummies, utterly covered in blood and dust, including this, the Mummy King. Having said that, if you chose the blessing of death, while you remain immune to those mummies, you are essentially dead. This means that if you take wounds, you can't heal. The solution to remaining not permanently dead is to speak to the live sphinx after you exit the tomb. She can bestow the blessing of life on you, essentially bringing you back from the dead. This next room is seemingly a decent rest stop, except for the slightly unsettling mummies laid to rest in here. The jars, however, contain something rather interesting, should you wish to open them. They contain several limes. An interesting snack, I suppose. As the adventurers advance after ransacking the limes, they get to this little problem. Fire burns through these seemingly painted tiles. How do they get across? Well, for starters, if somebody stands on this tile, then the fire does indeed subside. But as soon as they step off it, it comes back. The clue to getting past permanently is to look at the inscriptions behind the pharaohs. It shows a slave giving something to another man. A ferryman. Pay 2 coins, 1 each to the pharaohs, and you can cross into the river beyond. Yay, I'm free, I'm free! But how do you cross a river when there is no boat? You could try wading through, but you will soon find that it is extremely acidic. If you went in there, you wouldn't stand a chance. There are, however, a couple of ways where you can gain temporary passageway. Those limes, if you ate them, fine. And you probably think, well, limes are acidic. However, if you ingest limes and take a short rest, if you then excrete, it is an alkaline. That can guide you through safely for a certain time. Another method is to bash or chip away at the limestone walls and throw it in. That will again be temporary, however. You will still slowly lose hit points over time, so you don't want to linger in there. Inside this corridor are several statues of, you think, various pharaohs. There is also a grating blocking your way. With a couple of strength tests, it can be lifted, but bear in mind, it will be a slow slog through, especially in that river of acid. Another way is to look at the hieroglyphs. This is the son of a pharaoh and wishes to be treated like the pharaoh. And what do pharaohs like? They like you to bow, or kneel in this case. But, especially for the little halfling, that might be a bit of a problem. If you decide to go for brute force and don't want to bow to the son of pharaohs, then the son of gods, an avatar of Horus, appears instead. Which unfortunately means another quite powerful fight. And also, if you have the blessing of death, remember that even against an avatar of a god, you still can't heal. What's even worse, however, is if you chose the blessing of life. Even before Horus has appeared, everything in this room comes to life and will attack. Our adventurers have reached a crossroads, or that's what it appears to be. They can see treasure over here in this room, but they can't get to it. These have magical barriers. If they want to, they can rest on that small pillar in the middle of the lake, but it can only take 1 person. There is some rusty barriers over here which can be bashed through fairly easily. And for now, the adventurers can move into this part of the corridor. In this corner, after bashing through, it looks like we found the source of the acid. It is pouring out pure and undiluted, and it starts to cause heavy damage. In the next room just beyond are 2 tigers also pouring acid from their mouths. However, there is a way to appease them. Remember all those jackals from down the corridor that you slaughtered earlier? If you picked up any meat, well, tigers do love a bit of jackal. If you're stuck by this, there is a clue above the archway, which reads, Sekhmet wishes to devour Anubis. Sekhmet being the cat goddess, and of course Anubis being the jackal that we saw earlier. There is a huge billowing mist in this room, and as you toss the meat through, the mist slowly disappears, and the seemingly magical barrier also subsides, allowing you access through. Our adventurers move to the left, the room that they saw earlier full of treasure seemingly forgotten because they found something much closer and much more in reach. This room is absolutely abundant with treasure. There's even a chariot near the back next to a huge hieroglyph with a scarab beetle in the middle. There is also another ram's head, and lo and behold, there is a lever in there. That disables the trap that can be set off if you take too much gold, for there are hieroglyphs everywhere that state gold is fit for the pharaoh. However, if you haven't got the gauntlet, even if you try and use your own armour, unless it is magically imbued, those sharp teeth will go straight through it. The silver, however, is available for the taking, but if even one gold piece is taken, the trap is set off, and gold comes streaming in from the ceiling, almost drowning the players if they don't get out quickly enough. As the players rush out of the room to escape, all the gold disappears down the grates, completely unreachable. Even if you are plucky enough to try and grab the grating, pull it up and go down there to retrieve the gold, there is acid pouring down from the statues. An impossible task, most definitely. To get across this water requires a couple of dex saves, but it's fairly simple to get across. Just like the previous room, there's a lot of gold in here. But in particular, the most valuable things are these beautiful marble cats seemingly guarding another sarcophagi. But whoever is in that sarcophagus seems to be a pretty big fan of the goddess Sekhmet. There are hieroglyphs all over, seemingly an ode to Sekhmet, the cat goddess. The trap is set off simply by removing the two cats. Anything else is absolutely fine to take. And should you tamper with the precious cats, an avatar of Sekhmet herself appears and attacks the players. The only way forwards for our adventurers seems to be this single corridor. As you walk down, you will notice that there are 4 statues, each of them looking in a different direction. These 2 are looking to their left, whereas this one is looking to their right. This one is looking straight ahead. Should you just carry on down the corridor, an avatar of Thoth will appear and advance to attack. He is very, very powerful. The way to pass Thoth unharmed is to pick up this scroll, the one that the statue is directly looking at. It is to be read to the avatar. As you advance towards Thoth with the correct scroll and begin reading it aloud, a dripping quill appears in your hand, as if you need to write the answer at the bottom. The riddle reads, "What do you call a throne with 5 corners?" The answer is a pyramid, and you must write pyramid in the space on the scroll. Around the corner from the difficult riddle lies this: 2 more tigers, but acid doesn't come from their mouths, no. Instead, bright flames, extremely hot, and will certainly burn any one of our adventurers to a crisp. But there is a way past. This flame here burns cold, even though it looks just like any other flame. But through investigation, that can easily be found out. If someone was to pick that up and take it through into the flames, then they can pass. Our dragonborn gingerly takes up the flame, and almost in a procession, the adventurers head through into the inferno. And it's almost like there is a dome enveloping them as the cold air repels any hot flames away. And as they come to this next door, they are unsinged. After the inferno, there is a strange cat, another marble cat, and extremely valuable, facing the room in front of the adventurers. As the adventurers move closer to the room, they see a huge avatar of Anubis leering at them, but unable to move, almost as if they are paralysed with fear. Again, just like the previous cats in the room of Sekhmet, it is extremely valuable and could be tempting to our adventurers. But it is the one thing keeping our avatar at bay, as the jackals and Anubis are terrified of cats. They are the keepers of the dead, after all. So if you remove that cat, Anubis will come charging out, free of his curse. If Anubis is defeated one way or another, the adventurers come into this room, the room of someone very important who has something extremely valuable in here. Nevertheless, the gold is here for the taking. But if they take the one thing that is most valuable to him, in fact, it actually says on the walls something so valuable that everything he would have learned would crumble away if taken. This happens. You can still get out safely, however, if you want to grab the spell book, but you would have to pass a couple of dex saves in order to do that. The sand fills up very, very quickly and spills out into the room beyond, suffocating all those trapped within. With the sand shaken off, the adventurers turn this corner and they see this huge boulder tumbling towards them. Not that quickly, however. They manage to get out of the way in time. And then once it reaches this corner, it disappears and reappears back where it started and starts again. It fills the entire height and width of the room, so at the moment, it's completely impassable. Our halfling over here has found a button in the inscriptions here that simply states, "You cannot make a pyramid without corners." What happens on pressing the button? Well, the rock does not reset back to this corner here. Instead, a new corner is made and it carries on this way, a little faster than before. It does give our players time to get out of the way. And as it finishes to here, it then begins to roll back. And then back again. This will give our players enough time, just enough time, to rush behind it in order to get further on in this tomb. If you press the button again, what simply happens is the boulder returns to its original state. It rolls along this corridor and then goes back to where it was before. In this corridor and beyond lies copious amounts of gold streamed all over the floor and a huge sarcophagus. Inside the sarcophagus lies a very dedicated servant to Amun-Ra. If you were to open the sarcophagus, it would summon Amun-Ra himself. Not only that, but if you had triggered off the scarab beetle hieroglyph in this room here because you stole some gold, scarab beetles will swarm out in order to protect the sarcophagus, giving tons of biting damage. If, however, the sarcophagus is not disturbed and left alone as it should be, then all the gold in here is available to the adventurers. So I hope you enjoyed this slightly different encounters video, where apart from the jackals thundering out of the room here, all the monsters are completely optional. It's a much more trap-orientated dungeon, this, with every avatar of the god being represented by a certain trap. For example, Thoth being the god of scrolls. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already, and click the like button, comment as well, tell us what you think of this rather Egyptian-orientated dungeon. And also feel free to go onto our Patreon page and see if you want to sign up to any of our lovely rewards and become a fruit bowl, because fruit bowls are awesome and colourful and nutritious, especially pears. As you advance towards Thor with the correct scroll.
Wrong pantheon.